10 out of 10.
I'm going to have a wank. I'll be right back.
Was it good for you too?
Oh, Harry.
Wow.
You'll crop that out, right? I don't.
Sure. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Totally.
Welcome to Star Trek Trek, our inevitable journey through Auto's toiletry habits and also through the episodes of Star Trek. We are still continuing our summer of Voyager with Voyager Season 5, Episode 6, Timeless. An episode that is definitely in both quality and in CG, surprisingly, timeless itself. This episode, apart from being absolutely awesome, was written by Rick Berman, Brannon Braga, and probably bulk of the work done by Joe Minoski. We've spoken about it before on previous episodes, but he also did Time's Arrow, top tier episode, we're going to watch it, The Nth Degree, Year of Hell, The Killing Game, Dark Frontier, Equinox, Unimatrix Zero, and many others as well. This was directed by one LeVar Burton, who also directed Second Chances, Pegasus, The Sword of Kahless, Bar Association, The Raven, Q2, Terra Nova, First Flight, and was also Geordie LaForge in Star Trek The Next Generation, if you didn't already know.
Oh, well, he had way to bury lead
Just a small role. Just a small role.
By the way, you've made that exact joke before, and I was hoping you'd do it the same way again, and you did, so thank you.
I'm going to do that for every time there is an actor that directs an episode.
Incredible.
Look, I just want to say at the top of this, I was doing some bullshit in the pre-rating, and we're like, oh, it might be 9.9. That was a fucking stupid thing to say. I can't believe I even doubted how excellent, dude, this is such a good episode. Like, find me a fault, and I'll tell you 40 other things that were great with it. Like, the music was great. The writing was very smart. A lot of great, like, some call forwards. At no point were we ever disoriented with the time shifts. You knew, because they did smart stuff with framing the ships, that you knew what time period you were in. Great acting. Obviously, we said this was the best version of Harry Kim, the best version of Chakotay. Like, it had heart. It had a little humor. It was just like, what else could you want from this huge? It looked like it had a huge CG budget. Like, they almost gave it a filming budget. It looked great. It still looks great. So.
I feel like I need a cigarette after that. Like, it's just so fucking good. Like, you mentioned, like Berman, Braga, and like Minoski, and it's like I can definitely see Minoski's like fingerprints over here, but I feel like Brannon Braga has a bit of a rough reputation in the fandom because he's like associated with so many like technobabbly episodes and with like Enterprise. But like I feel like people forget like he got his start with like Timescape, I think was one of his first episodes. The guy is really good with time travel, and playing around with these aspects and like putting things into motion and calling forward, and just like, and that is all over this episode. It is just so smartly written. They know exactly how much time they've got and what they can afford to put in and what they have to cut. There is no everything is just so rich and lean, and it's just exactly what you need. There is no wasted space here. Like, this is like the meal that leaves you feeling completely content. You're not bloated. You're not like a little bit hungry afterwards. You're just like, that was perfect. That is exactly what you want. If every episode of Star Trek Voyager was this good, it would be better than every Star Trek ever made. Like, but
well, even if like a tenth of the episodes were this good, it would be.
Yeah.
Before we get too far away, it occurs to me that Brannon Braga is kind of like Rod Serling in one specific area, is that he's a very good writer. But he is responsible for so much of Trek. It's impossible not to get burned out. It's impossible not to lose perspective. So I think if we just had like a slice of the best of Brannon Braga, he'd probably be remembered a lot more fondly than some of his like Enterprise era kind of gaffes.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that.
There's one. I'm going to sort of just jump to various things that are just going in my head with this episode because there's so much in here. But the one thing that just keeps lingering in my head is probably going to be my bread. In fact, fuck it. Let's just go for some bread quickly. Quick bread. Quick loaf of bread, right? So this just
we all get a whole loaf.
Just get a whole loaf. We're gonna open a bakery for how much the stuff there is here.
There's a baker's dozen going on here.
Yeah. I think my bread of the episode is definitely that shot where they're in the Delta Flyer and they're working on the time travel. And you see the Delta Flyer fly out, and instead of being followed by Voyager, what you're expecting them to go into the slipstream. It's followed by the Challenger, the Galaxy class, and it's just a seamless time switch done in a very deceptive way that even myself, I've not watched the episode for, I don't know, probably about 10 years or so, even I was still like, oh shit, that's still good, that got me going. Like, the seamless interplay between the two different time zones was immaculate. And the way they played different things, like not having hum on the warp core on the bridge of the Voyager, to like, you know, the differences between the lighting and the set and the tensions that were going on. And it was like, we had complaints about the last episode we watched for the pacing. This had immaculate pacing. I was looking at the clock because I was just like, oh my god, I feel like the episode's almost over. It's only just begun, and I'm loving it. That's great. I'm so glad I've got so much more of this episode.
You know, when you wake up at night, you're like, don't be 7 o'clock. Don't be 7 o'clock. And it's 3 o'clock. You're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I kept checking the time. I'm like, oh, it's only halfway. I'm like, yeah
we got
let's go.
Yeah, pacing of this was that's my bread. You don't feel obligated to do breads, but I just wanted a bread there.
Oh no, I want to talk about bread. There's so much bread. My bread in this episode is probably going to have to be, because it was something I was really looking forward to when I watched this with Brody. Because we did a completely like linear progression from TNG to DS9 to Voyager. So like we did all of that, and like I remembered, wait, hang on, Timeless is coming, and then it's like, oh, I remember Geordie was in it, and I got to watch his face when Geordie just randomly appears on the screen. You're like, wait, what the fuck? And it's just so smart.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the perfect example of, I don't even know if you would call this fan service or remember berries, because it's just so natural and it makes perfect sense. Like, well, yeah, of course, like, why wouldn't Geordie have made Captain by this point?
It's not, it's not like, remember berries, it's more cast, fun cameo. People that haven't watched TNG, because, you know, there are those Voyager exclusive fans out there at that point, you know, who would go like, oh, right, it's just some captain who's, he's quite cool, he's quite reasonable, but there are definitely TNG fans who go, oh, cool, crossover, nice.
Yeah, no, and it's so naturalistic, and like, if you know Geordie and if you've gone through all of Trek, you're like, every word that he says, you completely buy. You know how so completely trustworthy he is, and how much integrity he has, and how much he means it. Just like so much communicated just by like a simple bit of casting, and the fact that he like did that and also was the director as well, just knocked both parts of it out of the park. Like, just that's my bread. Geordie is so fucking good in this episode. And he's only a tiny part of it, but he's so good. Auto, talk to me about how much bread this episode has.
Smartly written too, because they don't make them. I know there are a few, pardon me, a few writers, a few producers who would be like, no, we need a little edge here to add some threat. Let's have him threaten the ship or have him. He's like a nice guy. He's like, I would be doing the exact same thing that you're doing. And in some other timelines, I have done what you're doing. So, he may as well be one of the crew because he understands what the main cast go through. And actually reminds me of Captain Harry in Endgame, where he gets his own ship. He has to stop Janeway, and then beams her aboard and they have a little talk. It's very similar. Where I feel like that one almost feels more fan servicey than this because they made him a captain out of nowhere. So,
can we talk about the fact that Voyager actually has more TNG cameos than any other show?
Well, we've got Riker, we have LaForge,
Q,
Delancey, yeah. Who else do we have? Troy and Barclay.
Yeah.
What do we have to 5?
Yeah,
it's a lot. You don't get any Worf. You don't get any Data.
They do mention Picard.
They do mention Picard.
I think a couple times.
You get the 2 Ferengi from that TNG episode.
Yeah. Cole and Ardor,
yeah. But, you get a lot, actually.
So,
and Alice Reed, if you want to count her.
So let's talk about Kim.
My bread.
Oh, go on. Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought you said it.
I know. Sorry. No, my bread is actually... It's a little meta because it's a real life moment that I remember. I watched this a lot when I was a kid. It must have been one of the ones I had on VHS. I remember calling my mom over to watch the scene right before the Delta Flyer explodes, where Harry's figured it out. He punches the send button at 1 second. He throws his arms up in victory, and then they explode. And I like, because I'm an emotional guy, I was like bawling as a kid. I'm like, oh, he sacrificed so much and he did it and he redeemed himself and it was really emotional. And I just remember thinking I was an adult. My mom must have thought I was such a weird kid because there's like space explosions and stuff. And I'm like sobbing. And I'm like, I love Star Trek. So whenever I think about this episode, I think about him punching the paddle and throwing his arms up in victory and then, getting all emotional at that. So you talk about one of my criteria for how great is this episode is how good is your emotional climax, and that is like top notch.
Speaking of,
please continue.
No.
Hang on. You know what?
It's a perfect segue. It's going to be a perfect segue start. Speaking of Kim. No, go on. You do.
Look at him try.
There you go. Right. Speaking of Kim, can we just talk about how cool Harry Kim was in this episode? We're never going to say that again. But one of the things I posited during the watch along was, can we take this Harry Kim and transplant him into the rest of Voyager? Because he was just the best acting he's ever done. Like, he starts off the episode a bit like, I'm a cool rogue guy and I do my own thing. But, it kind of is a little bit justified. Yeah,
he's gone through 20 years of having his faith in Starfleet, which is basically all he. I don't want to say it's all he has, but it's been the main driving force of his life since he was a kid, basically, because he's a Starfleet brat or whatever.
I kind of want to talk about Garrett Wang a little bit because
he's got a road.
I want to talk about Garrett Wang a little bit because he does very little micro emotions, we always pick on Anson Wang for doing. Like someone will talk something, he'll just give a look over the eyes and walk away. He's kind of done some quite good characterization with this version of Kim. And really does embody, and even when he's having his breakdown at the end, it just feels like we never see any of that Kim. Even when you get a Kim-focused episode, he's kind of bland. He's still the same
because there's a season 7 episode called Nightingale or whatever, where he takes over a medical transport, and it's none of this grit.
Nothing's been learned from Timeless, which is wild.
Yeah, this is such an easy tee up for him to fucking nut up and show that he can be like that Harry, and then he never does. And I bet you fucking Garrett Wang was fucking pissed, like I would be.
So, I will call him cool again in 10 episodes when we get to the disease, because he stands up to Janeway and gives her hell, and I'm like, all right, yeah, he gives the speech that I would probably give if I were standing right there, or at least the one I would want to give. But they're very smart here. They do some supplemental stuff. The age makeup is probably the best they've ever done on Star Trek for him and Chakotay. It's highlighted at the end where young Kim is watching older Kim, and the difference is pretty stark. But in the moment, you don't notice it because there's no big wrinkles or prosthetics or anything. It looks great. They also juxtapose it against the beginning where he's doubting. Paris brings it up first. Is this going to work? They run the simulations. They have their big doubts. He's not sure if it's going to work. And then when they go to present it to Janeway, you have Paris kind of nudge him, and you can tell he's still unsure of himself. He's still a youngin', and so then in the future, he's totally sure of himself right up until the end when it appears that it might not work properly. But there's that. Normally when you play old, the best way to do is just be tired. In this case, it was just angry all the time, which also works. If you're irritated for a reason, because you've been through a lot of shit. So they do all these little supplemental things that help him sell his performance, which is great.
Just so much good going on with it, and it's also a case of we talked about how tropey stuff like Leather Jacket is, but it just. Because you don't get that for Harry so often. No. He never gets to play this. Even in the disease where he gets to be a bit more forthright and a bit more stand up for himself, or in the Killing Game, which Overtime mentioned, where he has some grit and he gets to shout a bit more. It's this is still more than both of those, because it's just there's nuance, and he's tortured, but he's not edgy. He's there's a bit of edge in there, but it's earned and warranted. Yeah, he's not twirling his mustache. Yeah. He's just that is a man who's been through some shit, and he has every right to. And when you consider the emotional context of it and who he is as a person before this happens to him, you look at him versus Chakotay and how they've reacted to that trauma, and it makes absolute sense that they ended up the way that they have. It's very well done.
My memory of a pull of the episode. During the 4th season of Voyager, Joe Menosky never imagined that the character of Harry Kim might serve as the protagonist in such a landmark episode as this. Quote, if someone had said to me the 100th episode next season is going to feature Garrett and Ensign Kim, I would have just laughed, Menosky speculated. It was just inconceivable. Consequently, Menosky thought that the way in which Kim's portrayal in the two-part of that Killing Game inspired the creation of the future Kim was, quote, funny. That caught me a little off guard when I read it because I was, part of his hindsight, we got to see him actually pull this off and we're like, oh, of course he can do it. But Voyager's a pretty good ensemble cast. It isn't quite as dominated as, like, say, Picard and TNG or obviously Kirk, Spock, and Bones in the original. So it feels more ensemble. I always kind of thought he could pull it off, so that surprised me. But when you think about it, it's like, yeah, he does get the short end of the stick at every possible opportunity. He's kind of like O'Brien's shoulder of Voyager. So the fact that they did give him like...
see a little pip on my chair.
Yeah, I know. So the fact that they gave him this, I guess, was a surprise. But the fact they pulled it off so seamlessly in hindsight, I'm not surprised. I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's like, like, intellectually that he's a good actor. Because, like, even in, like, Caretaker, he does a decent job of, like, having some decent interplay with B'Elanna. Okay. But it all just disappears so quickly and just is abandoned. And it's like, this episode just, like, shows that you couldn't have had this Kim every episode. I feel like that would have gotten tired. I don't think anyone could sustain that level of intensity and that strong of it. But we could have had so much more than what we did get. Like, this is like Kim at like 15. We got Kim at like a 2 the majority of the show, And it's like, there's room in between there to give him something to do.
Maybe they could have transitioned him, not like that, after Night. Because we get that scene with him, Echoes of the Void, like maybe those months spent there kind of chipped away at his sanity a little bit, and he had to, I don't know, change certain things about his attitude to help him get through that. If you wanted to give him a little bit of a harder edge, maybe do that. But the transition of the pad on the table after Janeway and Chakotay are talking to the future, like there's that. There's the call forward where you see Harry recording the message to himself. They do a lot of good little links back and forth that reward a second watch. There's another one, I think, with Chakotay that I forget, where he does something that his past self does or whatever. But it's like where we talked about the last episode. What's it called? Once Upon a Time. Yep. I don't even remember. It's such a bad episode. Like we panned the writing because it was rushed and because there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen. This one was smart at every turn, and it rewards a viewer for watching it again and again and again. And again.
Yeah, no, it's just like every other line. I was just like, "That's a fucking good line. That's a fucking good line."
What is it?
We're calling yesterday and stuff like that. Like,
we are as one. We are as one.
We are as one.
Oh yeah,
drunk 7 is a mentor to me.
This episode had a drunk 7 of 9, and that's like the least.
And then her skull.
Yeah, and then oh my god, yeah. I need to find a line that.
And I love the slow-mo shot and engineering. Just like.
Yeah,
every choice is the right choice. Every single one. Like, in fact, you know what?
Hang on, I gotta find it. What's the
I want to watch the episode again.
There's something Kim said about time or something with the doc, and I've forgotten what it was then.
Oh, is it, this isn't a normal phone call. We're calling yesterday. Is that the one?
Not quite. It's in that conversation. So I'll find it. You guys.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I'll try and find it. Hang on.
Well, anyway,
keep talking.
Janeway was good in this. When she has that little dialogue with Chakotay, she lays out her plan in kind of a fun way. It's fun for the audience to learn what they're going to do. Where she says, and now it's escaped me because we've been doing this for a few hours. Where she says, we're celebrating. This is our last night in the Delta Quadrant, which takes a half second to process. And then the viewer realizes, okay, they're going to make the attempt. And then she almost like pulls back, like shrinks in her seat. She's like, what do you think, Chakotay? Because she was very sure delivering this news, but when she sees how reticent he is, okay, she can't do this without him fully behind her. So we get a little bit of, it's a 1A, 1B. This is how a captain and first officer should interact. So that was a really strong scene too.
I love how hungry she is in that episode and that like sequence as well. Like not just because they're having lunch, but like because it's like because they go like we've waited long enough. Like just like the repetition. Yeah. She sounds manic, and it's like the moments like that where it's like you get to see like the mask crack a little bit, and it's like it's such a completely human reaction. And you absolutely buy that they would make this reckless decision. Like normally you would like penalize a character for that, like say that's unprofessional, that's an incompetent thing to do. It's like no, it totally makes sense that they would be this hungry to go home, like after this long, after having lost so much and like so much time spent.
No, I found it.
Good.
I found it.
Okay.
We're talking to yesterday. Timing is everything. I really like that. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
A good cause and effect deja vu scene at the end where Harry sends the coordinates. They do that whole thing with Tuvok and Seven and Janeway, and then they have to do it back over again. And you're looking for the little similarities, like where does it diverge? Because we did talk, they must have spent a fortune on some of the effects work of the ship crashing and Delta Flyer exploding and all that. So it does feel a little claustrophobic the rest of the time when they're in the hold of the Delta Flyer. And so that little loop scene, it makes sense thematically, but it also probably saves a little budget because you can just eat up another 40, 50 seconds doing the exact same thing, or maybe even reusing some of that footage.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't feel so claustrophobic because they were cutting back and forth quite sort of almost sporadically between like Voyager and the front of the Delta Flyer and then the back as well. So you felt like the journey as well, like the journey for the ship going through Slipstream and the flight of the Challenger and the Delta Flyer as well. So there was enough. It wasn't just sort of like a 12 Angry Men sort of like closed quarters sort of like discussion, but it was there was enough sporadicness in there that you didn't feel like you were closed in by. I felt anyway.
Well, I also feel like the claustrophobicness kind of helped the episode because it's like you have so much tension and a ticking time clock. Like having things literally be physically tight, it kind of enhances that rather than
Challenger is closing in on them. This is their last chance.
Yeah, if anything, like just excuses to have a warp core explosion be your time limit. That Star Trek does it a lot. This one felt good. Like this is the one of the ones I'll say. Oh,
it happens. Yeah. It actually happens.
That's true. That's
like,
good.
Yeah. So I mentioned they do the smart thing with the inner space variance or whatever, 0.1, 0.2, and as they go through the progression, they shake the camera a little more. They do great urgency at the end where Harry's trying to figure out the progression. You have Janeway urging him, I need an answer, Harry, we're almost out of time. The music swells, the camera shaking, the klaxon, which we said sounded angrier than it ever had. They throw in all these little elements. Like there's no flat moments in the episode. The only flat moments are by design, where Chakotay's on the bridge of the frozen Voyager, no music, everything's muted, no thrum of the warp core, and he's just sadly reminiscing about his past life. So
We'll talk about Tessa. That's probably the one
like
down point on it.
I think it's not even the one down point, but it's just a case of like it's the one part that doesn't go as fully explored as the rest of the episode, and that's just because of timing. And it's like if I would absolutely like love a two-parter of this if you'd done a two-parter of it and you could maintain the same intensity and like depth and complexity. I just have more of it. Yeah. I feel like this would be probably the best two-parter they ever did.
I think with Tessa, it's just more a case of giving Chakotay someone to talk to that isn't Harry. The Harry and the Doc have their moments, and Chakotay doesn't really have anything. Doesn't really do a lot in this episode, to be honest. Like other than sort of talk to Geordi.
He gets to emote, and he gets to be a sounding board and a facilitator.
But Tessa kind of gives him that sort of like bouncing board as well.
When he's commanding, that scene here, he walks into frozen sickbay and says, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Both Harry and the Doc snap too, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah, his heroic entrance.
Yeah, I think if this was a two-parter, you give Tessa, help them break the ship out of space dock, and then the audience absolutely buys in. They're like, all right, she's with him, ride or die. We can get behind him. This, you don't see that because like she puts on a jacket and beams over there, but she doesn't actually do anything besides verbally support them. Where, other episodes, there's a phaser fight, or they'll save someone from the Borg, or, Worf will jump over the clamshell and fight someone. You're like, all right, he's really part of the crew. And Tessa doesn't really get that. So it's not on her, it's on the time crunch. But
it does feel like, she's doesn't really have enough motivation to sort of say like, oh yeah, I'm just going to wipe away my existence just because I really like Voyager because I've heard it a lot from my boyfriend. Like that's just a little.
Yeah,
bit
it's one of those things where like, I really do think that they could have done with like giving her a backstory of like there's things I want to avoid that would be fixed by doing this as well. I feel like that would have done a lot with very little. But a two-parter of this would have been insane.
Okay, yeah. So what scene do you cut for that?
I think you just add another minute. Just add another minute of time.
Just that line. Oh, there are things I would rather avoid ever happening. Having happened. Yeah, just say.
Yeah, I feel like it's very easy to just add that. Like I don't think like it breaks the thing. But you said if you were going to do a two-parter of this episode, I feel like you would have a really cool cold open by like showing them stealing Voyager and like Tessa's the one like pushing it forward, and then like you have the reveal of stealing the Delta Flyer rather, and then and then you like reveal, oh by the way, it's the future, and like that would be a cool way to do the cold open of a potential two-parter of this. Like that's how you do a cold open. If we could do our best worst, I have a nominee for that Star Trek Call of Awesome.
Okay, let's do that.
The best advice I can give you is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance. No. Just stop saying that.
There's our best and worst. Stars, go on then. What was your best and worst?
Now that's a Star Trek!
I've been wanting to use that for a while now. I could apply this to the entire episode.
I'm surprised you're not swearing.
Could put the entire episode into the Hall of Awesome. But for me, it's actually just going to be the ship crash. I think that is... Not me. Not me. I swear that ship crash hasn't aged a day.
It looks good.
And I am in awe of that. Like, just like the realistic like snow physics, the crunch as it hits the fucking planet, the nacelle hit. The nacelle hit is so unnecessary. You don't need to show the nacelle hitting that rock and blowing open. But it's like it's CGI porn.
I kind of want to send it to the Corridor crew, who they do those best and worst VFX things, and I kind of want to see because they're very tolerant. They're very sort of forgiving for like shows in the 90s having slightly dodgy FX because it's best for the time. I feel like they'd be very favorable on this.
Yeah. And they make exactly the right choice in that they do not show you an interior shot. Because, like, that is your entire crew, like, your entire main cast dying violently. And it's like they don't, like show you a lame shot of them shaking in the corridor as they're crashing. Like, you only get that beforehand.
TOS would have absolutely done that. TOS would have had a bunch of extras in the hallway, like shaking. That would,
yeah. And it's like they completely rely on just like the sheer brutality of how hard Voyager hits the ground for you to no, they're all fucking dead. That's it. They're gone. It's just so brutal and violent and so well executed. Like just and it's such a gut punch as well. It's like it's one of those things where it's so grisly to imagine, but it's beautiful to watch because you have to appreciate the artistry of it. And it gives such a stake to the episode. It's like any other time travel episode, you can kind of go like, I don't know, is it right to avert this? Like you're technically wiping out a timeline in order to do this, like all those lives not lived or whatever. But here you see that and you're like, no, you have to avoid that. That's an awful thing. Technically speaking, Naomi Wildman just fucking bit it. Like her like small child corpse is frozen on Voyager in there. And it's like, don't think about it too hard because it's just fucking sad and awful. Like it completely contextualizes Harry's like journey and gives it real stake. You want to avoid that. It's such a well executed moment.
Idle, do you have the Maynard Ferguson music? Because we can't do an inauguration without.
Okay, in which case, the Trek Time Hall of. Oh, no, what did we call it? With the. Oh, hang on. Let's hang
Hall
on.
of Awesome.
No. God, we've got to start that again.
Spargo Emporium.
No. Hang on. No. We're not doing this. Hang on. Wait. Oh, bugger. Hang on. I've got my thing all so. Right. Hang on. Start that again. Right. This is the Kiva Spargo Trophy Room of Trek moments. Oh, I can't turn it off. Oh shit. There we go. Right. Okay. Start.
Copyright is coming for us.
That was a perfect bumblefuck. I love
Yeah,
that.
the buttons on different screens. Right, Stars, what is your submission for the Kivas Fajo Trophy Room of Trek moments?
So yeah, it's the ship crash. Like that's my.
That's
I
a
just
good.
laid
That's a
out my
very good
case.
one.
I'm putting it in there. It
I
has
will
to be in there.
Time
I
to
will
shit.
say, the only quibble I have with that is they don't completely nail the weight physics, which is notoriously hard to do. Like getting heavy objects to bounce exactly right. Video games have been trying to do that for decades, and no one really quite nails it. So that's the only thing. But dude, it is excellent. It's iconic, and it serves a huge purpose in the episode. So all in favor? Aye, it's passed.
Aye.
That's fast.
I had an alternative nominee, which was going to be the conversation between Janeway and Harry at the end of the episode, because it is so well done, and they're both just acting the fuck out of it. But I was like, I just put the entire fucking episode in there.
I do wonder if
No one
Harry's
will
kind
complain.
of playing a little bit more plainer in his scene, because it seems like just a contrast between him and just rogue Harry, just seems to be very much sort of.
Well, he's a little shell-shocked by all this,
Yeah.
which makes sense for the character. He is, again, 15 years less experienced than Rogue Harry. So
That's very true.
the Frozen the actors getting to play Frozen Dead must have been fun for them. And if you're going to do the actors all made up, then you got to get the tight shots. They do on Janeway, and she's like laying there with her arm up and her perfectly coiffured hair, and that was hilarious.
Even dies.
Well, it just reminds me of that bit of Wrath of Khan where it's like, physician, heal thyself. It's like, is that all you got to say? What do you think of my performance? It's like fucking bonus
Yeah.
dramatic little bitch on the floor. It's like, the actors love playing dead. But so my best of was the ship crash. The worst moment, I'm going to be really, really quibbly and say that it's the fact that Geordie is blatantly not calling them from the bridge of the Challenger. He is calling them from Janeway's ready room.
I can excuse that. He's having a private conversation with Chakotay, because he was leveling with him man to man, not as Moy's just like, I'll take this personally, we'll just discuss this, try and do it diplomatically. So I can say that's okay.
But it's the fact that I can also recognize that it's Janeway's ready room. But guess what? It's the minorest of minor quibbles. That's the worst of I can think of for this episode. Up to you guys.
Go on, Auto.
Idle, go ahead.
Okay. My best moment, you know what? I think it's just the conversation between Kim and the Doc as things are going wrong, and you've got that nice scale of time pressure. Chakotay and Tessa are on the bridge, as it were, waiting for the countdown to resume, and there's that bit of timing going through, and the Doctor has to kind of slap him into sense, like, get over it, what if we could do this? And they come up with an answer very quickly that is slightly unorthodox, and that whole little sequence of him having to use this mobile emitter to power it, and you feel the sense of time, like you're counting down in your head, like, is this 60 seconds? You can hear it, and it paces very well, and it pays off as well. It's, again, one of those few moments where you feel the time crunch being applied. So that's probably my best of that episode. I mean, there's so many moments you could have in this best of, but I'll go for that. Without
You guys can take more.
I could, but I won't. My worst moment. Yes. I don't think I have a worst moment. I would probably quibble that Tess is undeveloped, but I wouldn't say that's a bad moment. I think this is just flawless. I can't think of any point in this episode that I think, I wish they hadn't done that. I generally can't. I can think of lots of things I wish they'd done as well, but nothing I can think that, I don't know, maybe them not sliding on the ice at the start. It's like, it's slippery. It's like, no, it's fine. No, I don't. I actually, rare occasion, I don't think I have a worse moment. I don't think I can get anything. Go on, Otto.
He says you offered. I'll take the scene in engineering with the slow mo, the pan shot, the humor between Seven and the Doc, the obvious excitement, the speech, and then just culminating in Paris. Laser guiding is so good. I love Tom. Yeah. Tom is an underrated part of Voyager, and I just love selling. I love singing his praises every time. He's just such a consistently good character. Well, consistently good performance, especially in the later seasons. Consistently good character. Early on, Tom is kind of unbearable, but that's not his fault. And
they do that when they're in the holodeck testing, the limit testing or whatever. They do. It's so cliche, but it works so well. is they build the intensity with the music. By the way, praise Dennis McCarthy. I had a whole section planned about how much I wanted to talk about him. He's got over 260 credits, episode credits in Trek.
That's wild.
You know, when you think about Star Trek, maybe you think Alexander Courage or whatever, but it's like, no, this guy carried the fuck out of Berman era Star Trek, and you didn't even realize it. So all praise to him. But that scene where they're limit testing in the holodeck, they build intensity, they build the music, the ship is shaking, and then computer freeze program, and it just everything stops. It's like such a good moment for setting the tone that I appreciated they did that.
Over time, I'm very happy with how many kilometers Voyager was buried beneath the surface. That was absolutely fine. Just surface level indicates how hard it hit. Perfect.
The perfect number of nostrils in this episode too. Which, all right, I'll take 2 good moments. You know, maybe I could sit down and go through everything, but off the top of my head, this was the best cold open. Beautiful shot. The Enterprise the Voyager buried under ice with just enough of the ship lettering intact that you can tell exactly what it is. They pull out like, you know, CGI crane shots, so you see how tiny they are on this giant glacier. It was awesome. So awesome, in fact, that after the first commercial, they cut right back to that exact same shot because they want to establish things. My other best, Doc and Kim. Doc says, at least you weren't buried under 20 meters of ice. And Kim does the slow turn and goes, you don't know how many times I wished I was. And that was like almost the first establishing moment of older, rugged Kim where you're like, wow, he's seen some shit. And that really helped his character. Doc had to eat crow, which he doesn't do very often. And he kind of shrunk back. That was just a great moment. And I'm going to use... Everybody gets one. I'm going to use my veto for this episode for worst moment because I would have said Tessa, but if your worst moment is I wish they had a 2-parter so we could see more of this, then it's not really your worst moment.
Yeah, it's true.
So I can't think of any single scene I want to cut. I can't think of a single poor acting decision. Well, a little one, but I'm not even going to mention because it's inconsequential. This was, like you said, a flawless episode. So veto.
Okay, before we go over to our rating criteria, a little bit of trivia for Auto, who has hoped. Well, for both of you, Auto, please close memory alpha. You may already know this.
I've got 6 memory alpha tabs open right now.
Okay. Captain Janeway has died 9 times over the course of Voyager. Boy. What number was this? How many times has she died up to this?
On screen, yeah.
On screen, yes. I believe so.
This is like guess the tier. Hold on, does the closest one win?
Sure.
Okay, then Stars, you can go first, and I'll just pick whatever's.
The price is right.
No, hold on.
You have to post
9 times.
to me.
You said 9 times, yeah?
She's died a total of 9 times.
Does she die time and again? When the thing explodes, does that count? Or does she seal? So I guess she seals.
Do you have a list of how many?
I'm just going from memory alpha here, so I don't think I had a list.
I would say 6. This is the 6th time she's died on.
Right, I'll go 5. I'll play the game.
Point for Stars. Exactly 6. The 6th of 9 times. I have a follow-up.
Well done.
You have a chance to redeem it. Voyager has been destroyed 5 times in the entire series. Which time
seems
is
low.
this? Yeah, I know, right?
2.
3.
Which
2 points for Stars. Is 3 is exactly 3. That man knows his Voyager. All right.
Seems low, actually. I feel like Voyager gets blown up a lot more often.
Yeah.
It's weird. Okay.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3-5. Associational rating norm -3. That's much too low a rating.
I was not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Stars, please give us our unsatisfactory Schiller rating code.
It's actually going to be unsatisfactory because I spent so much of this time just watching the episode and not really paying attention to anything else. I was just zoned in completely. So I just have the pretty paltry offering of, gentlemen, how many truly timeless episodes of television out of 10 do you want to give this episode?
I'll take it. I mean, I've automatically filled in 10s on every column, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I cannot think, apart from more of it.
Yes.
What more of a compliment can you give something? I want more of it. More.
So part of what sticks in my head, bread-wise, is how cinematic it feels. Like I said, CGI crane shot on the ship, slow motion and engineering. There's a moment on the Delta Flare I called out where for whatever reason, I feel like when they do low mood lighting, it just helps it feel more cinematic. And I think about yesterday's Enterprise, The Enemy, two great TNG ones. I could turn this into a David Carson directing episode.
Actually, was Neelix
review.
even in this episode? He wasn't, was he?
Oh, it's an 11. Bump my rating up to. But they're all the choices, the great hero shots of Challenger and Voyager and stuff. Like it feels like it should be made, even made for TV movies. Almost insulting. It's basically a movie. It's a 42-minute movie. So, well, we better wrap it up. Someone had a little accident. I got to go clean up. But
sorry.
Oh God. All right.
All right.
Oh, boy.
10.
10 stars.
10.
Is anyone tempted to break the scale for this? Or is 10 just too good of a fit?
Have we done it positively before?
I did once for The Visitor, and
You
that's
did it
the
for
only
The
time
Visitor.
What did you give it?
I
I
feel
give it an 11.
I feel like breaking.
Just so it can stand apart.
I feel like this is a perfect episode. I don't feel like it does something as revolutionary as The Visitor. I think that pushed a boundary a little bit in a way. I feel like this is just a Star Trek episode, top of the banks.
Yeah, I feel like the Visitor kind of wins on a bit of focusing in on Jake. Again, like focusing in on like an underutilized character almost.
Harry.
Weird
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, but it's also a case of like you have like the strong focus on like the black male like fatherhood angle in like the Visitor, and that is genuinely kind of like genre defining and pushing. So yeah,
I feel we'd be doing the
elevates
same
it.
for Far Beyond the Stars. I feel like that would be like if we do decide to jump break it, it would be justified only because it has pushed a boundary somewhere that is unexpected, not just for Star Trek but for television. This is perfect for Star Trek.
Yeah.
But then I'm
Like,
not going to stop you if you want to break it
perfect.
down.
No,
Just
10 feels right.
curious.
10 feels right. Yeah.
Perfect.
It does feel like a good fit.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, in which case, this scores an average of 10. Surprise, surprise. Which, considering episodes it is sitting among, it is our... Hang on a minute. Note the scale. It is our... Well, it's tied with Spock and Amok and Those Old Scientists, which were both also 10 out of 10 episodes for us. Obviously falling shy of The Visitor at 10.3 and doing slightly better than Night at 9.8. This is our best...
Wow, we love that one.
We did, yes.
That was good.
So, after our last... Hold on, I got to pull that up. After our last two-parter, what did we have? Extreme Risk In the Flesh. We didn't love In the Flesh. And we were sitting around talking after, like, is Voyager Season 5 really that good, or did we make a mistake? And I started scrolling down, like, Timeless, Counterpoint, Latent Image, Bride of Chaotica, Gravity, Course Oblivion, Think Tank, Someone to Watch Over Me, Relativity. I'm like, oh yeah, it is that good. So
it's just, I'm gonna give Bride of Chaotica a point breaking score. I adore that episode. Like it's you want to talk about like comfort food? I rewatch Bride of Chaotica constantly.
And since we're doing the Summer of Voyager, Season 5 is currently sitting at an average of 8 overall. So if you want to know what
we're going to get those numbers up.
That's probably going to go up. There's a few dips. It's gone down a little bit. It's gone from like 9s to 8s to 9s to 5s to 3s to 10s. So, but coming
is there
up...
anything that's like also? Yeah, what's coming up? Is there anything that looks like it'll be below an 8?
For me, Dark Frontier, just for reasons of neutering the board. But our next 4 are Infinite Regress, where we have 7 of 9's multiple personality disorder. That's a great snapshot of her range as an actress.
Yeah.
Nothing Human, where B'Elanna has a parasite, and they call a holographic Cardassian, and talk about the ethics of medical stuff. That one I watched was great. 30 Days, which is Paris is suddenly an aquatic fanatic, which is a fine episode, but I like it. The writing's a bit whatever. And then Counterpoint as episode 10 of the season, which I'm already locked in for 10. That's already a 10. So
it's 10.
We have mostly excellence coming up in the near future.
We do.
Well, treat for us.
Thank you for watching, everybody. We'll be back soon with the next episode. If you haven't already, please go and subscribe to our Twitch, and you can enjoy our super secret podcast, which features us having a nice discussion about Otoy's Roddenberry archive thing, which we were very complimentary on. But yeah, go and check that out. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Live long and prosper. And we'll be back for those regulars on the stream. We'll be back on Wednesday. No, we won't be back on Wednesday because I'm having Wednesday off because my son is playing the trumpet. No, my son is having a choir thingy, so I have to attend as the as the parent. That is
your little 8-year-old son is praying to Batman.
Yeah, he's praying. Yes, he's praying to Batman, and I have to go and find the Riddler and tell him to just stop it. So yeah, we're back then, but we'll be back soon with some more away team, and we're going to take a little for those on stream. We're going to take a little break for December to enjoy Christmas and all that stuff, and we'll come back fresh in January for some more treks and all that palaver, and maybe a few pros and cons with these. Going to get these two in pros and cons because I know that's going to be fun.
Never.
They're going to hate each other by the end of it. It's gonna be fun.
Our friendship will end immediately if we have to do a debate show.
Right, live long and prosper, everyone, and ta-ra.